The diner was quiet, but Maria's heart was loud with worry. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly above her, and the worn leather booths smelled faintly of coffee and syrup. It was nearly midnight, but Maria had been on her feet since early morning. Her body ached, her shoes were damp from spilled soda, and her apron was stained from the long, relentless shift. She wiped the counter with the same tired cloth she'd been using all evening, her mind drifting to the unpaid bills waiting for her at home. Rent was overdue, the electricity company had sent another warning, and her young son Daniel had reminded her that his sneakers were tearing at the seams. Every step he took at school, every glance at the wealthier kids with new shoes, cut Maria deeper than her own pain. She had promised him a better life, but survival was becoming a fight she wasn't sure she could keep winning. She couldn't afford to collapse. Not now. Not ever. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet power of human compassion, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness. Together, we can spread more stories that touch lives and remind people that goodness still exists. That night, just before closing, a man walked into the diner. His clothes were wrinkled, his face pale and worn, and his eyes carried a heaviness Maria had seen before in others, the kind of emptiness that comes from carrying burdens alone. He ordered only a cup of black coffee and a slice of apple pie. Maria, though exhausted, placed the order with her usual gentle smile. She set the plate before him, refilled his cup without being asked, and asked softly if he needed anything else. He shook his head. She noticed he hardly touched the pie, only staring at it with a faraway look, his hands trembling slightly around the coffee cup. Maria didn't press. She had learned through years of waiting tables that sometimes the best gift you could give someone was space, accompanied by kindness that didn't demand anything in return. So she treated him the same as everyone else, even though he left little reason to expect a tip. He stayed for nearly an hour, staring at the pie, occasionally sipping the coffee. Finally, he stood, slid a few crumpled bills under the check, and left without a word. Maria sighed, ready to clear the table, hoping maybe, just maybe, there would be enough left over to bring Daniel closer to those new shoes. But when she picked up the check, her heart sank. There was no tip. Instead, a folded piece of paper lay tucked beneath the receipt. With tired fingers, she opened it. The note read, "Tonight, I came here planning for this to be my last meal. I chose pie because it was my favorite as a child. I had decided that once I left here, I would end my life. But your kindness, your patience, your smile, they made me pause. For the first time in months, I felt seen, like maybe the world still held a little goodness. Because of you, I'm going to give life another chance. I'm sorry I cannot leave you money, but I promise, someday, I will repay you in a way that matters more. Thank you for saving my life." Maria's breath caught in her throat. The words blurred as tears welled in her eyes. She sat down in the empty booth, clutching the note like it was more valuable than any dollar bill. All night she had been consumed with worry about rent, about bills, about shoes. And here, in her hands, was proof that she had unknowingly saved a life. She whispered a prayer for the stranger as she closed her eyes. Somehow, her exhaustion felt lighter, her aching feet less painful. The note reminded her of something she often forgot: her kindness mattered. Even when she felt invisible, her small gestures carried weight she couldn't see. The following weeks were still hard. Maria worked double shifts, skipped meals to stretch what little she had, and hid her tears from Daniel at night. But she carried the note in her apron pocket everywhere she went. On the darkest days, when a rude customer snapped at her or when she opened her nearly empty fridge, she would unfold it and read the words again. "You saved my life." It reminded her that even in her brokenness, she had the power to touch others. Months passed, and the stranger never returned. Sometimes Maria wondered if he had kept his promise to try again. Sometimes she feared he hadn't. But she clung to hope, believing that the note had been honest, that her smile had given him a second chance. Nearly a year later, the diner buzzed with the dinner rush. Plates clattered, orders piled up, and Maria's apron was once again stained with coffee and sauce. As she hurried between tables, a man in a well-tailored suit walked in. His presence stood out among the crowd, polished shoes, confident stride, and eyes that seemed familiar. He waited near the counter until Maria came over, breathless but polite. "You may not remember me," he said softly, placing an envelope on the counter, "but I remember you." Her heart froze. She looked at him again, and recognition struck her like a wave, the trembling hands, the haunted eyes from that night long ago. Except now, those eyes were alive, filled with gratitude and light. With shaking fingers, Maria opened the envelope. Inside was a check, more money than she had ever seen in her life. Along with it was a letter. He explained that after that night, he had chosen life. He had entered therapy, found support, and rebuilt the career he once thought he had lost forever. He had started a foundation dedicated to mental health, helping others like him. And he had never forgotten the waitress who smiled at him when he needed it most. "You gave me a reason to live," the letter read. "This is only a small way of giving back. May you and your son never struggle the way you did that night. Because of you, I got a second chance. Now, I hope to give you one too." Maria's tears fell freely, her hands trembling as she clutched the check and letter. For so long, she had believed she was barely surviving, unnoticed in her quiet struggles. Yet her kindness, so simple and small, had rippled out in ways she could never have imagined. That night, Maria went home and hugged Daniel tightly. She told him about the note, about the stranger, and about how one small act of kindness had changed everything. She showed him the letter, wanting him to understand that even when life feels impossible, compassion has the power to create miracles. The bills were paid. Daniel got new shoes, new clothes, and Maria even managed to save money for the future. But what mattered most wasn't the check or the financial relief. It was the lesson that kindness could change lives in ways we might never see. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Kindness. By doing so, you help us spread stories that remind people of hope, compassion, and second chances. And before we close, we have a special request: tell us in the comments what kindness means to you. Does it mean giving when you have little? Listening when someone feels unheard? Or maybe smiling at a stranger who looks like they need it? Share your thoughts, we would love to hear them. Maria's story is not just about struggle and survival. It is about how even in the darkest nights, the smallest light can guide someone home. It is about how a tired waitress, with nothing but a smile to offer, saved a man who thought he had nothing left to live for. And it is about how that man, forever changed, gave back in ways that would ripple outward for years to come. So the next time you wonder if your kindness matters, remember Maria. Remember the note. Remember the man who chose life. Because you never know whose tomorrow might depend on your kindness today. And that, more than money, is the greatest tip any of us can give.